All right, here we are, Dan. We're on our third prediction today. So 1, 2, 3.
Absolutely.
And you gave a bit of an insight yesterday, mate. It's going to be about the housing market. So we're going to talk about a 2023 prediction. I'm excited about this one. What about yourself, mate?
Yeah, mate. It's the last couple of years have been huge, right? If you think back to this is casting your mind back a little bit. Let's think back to the start of COVID, right? And we were sitting there and the media was going, the world's ending, which it kind of was. I'll give them that one for free. But they were saying, look, the housing market, it's going to plummet by 30%. You're going to basically lose all your hard-earned money and the world is over from a property perspective. But that, lo and behold, we have the government kick in. There's a bit of stimulus and everything like that. And then we have 2 years of what would be considered some of the most phenomenal growth that you've ever seen in the property market, right? And I don't see how that keeps happening for the next 2 years again.
Yeah, it was unsustainable, right? And nothing triggers decisions like fear, right? Like everyone was sort of like, oh, what do we do? And people who held back, to be honest, you're kind of paying the price now. So I think the big thing is whenever we sort of hear people going like, oh, it's going to drop by 30% and 40%, I'm going to wait for the drop. Fuck, I know those people and they're always just waiting. They're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And I just get sick of listening to them about how they're waiting for this big correction. It just never really happens, but you do have your peaks and your troughs, mate. So whenever we look at the property cycle, you go through a boom and then into a trough, then an upturn and again. But the whole point is that every time you go into a trough or a slump, as they call it, that the slump previous should be lower than the slump that comes up next, because that's how property sort of works, and when you can afford to get into the market, it's better to get in and be able to have a sustainable portfolio that is able to absorb those bumps and bruises along the way. If you're in there flipping houses and you want to sell it in 12 months' time, you might feel those bumps and bruises a hell of a lot more than people who hold houses for 20 years and 30 years. And you and I always say, realistically, a minimum of 10 years to hold your properties before you start going, okay, cool. Am I going to liquidate out of this or anything like that? Because the odds of that stack in your favor. But if you want to buy tomorrow, right, and then sell Monday next week, then you might screw that up.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. What they're really doing is absorbing a whole lot more risk, right? And it's a pretty risky market out there at the moment. If you don't know what you're doing, right, I still believe there's some great opportunities out there to be had. But the mindset you're approaching this way is, as you've sort of said, if you're turning up going, I'm going to hold this sucker for 1 year, make $150,000, then exit the market, you're probably at a really high risk of fucking something up. But if you think to yourself, I'm going to benefit from what the property market's done for the last 50 years, which is moving a trajectory at 6 to 7%.
Yep.
On compounding interest. You tell me, why has something dramatically changed in the property market that we think everything's going to change differently to the last 50 years?
Mate.
Probably hasn't.
I don't have an answer for that. I don't have a prediction on that one. I put my money with the bricks and mortar. So
absolutely,
which has been good. What about the rental market, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty bullish about the rental market because despite all of the construction that everyone's seen and the stimulus that we're seeing, even the last budget release, right? The government's turned around and said, hey, we need to produce X amount of brand new housing, right? It can't be old established housing. Brand new housing has to meet X amount of quota in order for us to even sustain the population growth that we've got, or the sort of the international migrancy and everything like that. So we've got a growing population in Australia, and even though we've had a phenomenal amount of construction over the last few years, it just hasn't caught pace. You read it everywhere, you see it everywhere. Vacancies are at an all-time low. Vacancy rates are at an all-time low, right? And then everyone's sitting there going, well, there's people sleeping in cars, mate, because they can't get properties, right? And these are normally great tenants to get into your properties. So I don't see how rental prices can't continue to increase a little bit, at least until a huge amount of supply comes onto the market. And so we'll just wait and see how that plays out. But I don't see a huge amount of supply coming in. So I think rental prices will probably keep moving at least in line with inflation.
Yep. Excellent, man. Excellent prediction. Well, we'll find out in 12 months when we look back and see if we got any of it right.
And mate, we'll have to do it
tomorrow, though. So what have we got in store for tomorrow, buddy?
Mate, tomorrow is we kind of started to almost glean into it today, but tomorrow is if you are going to go and buy a property, right, there's some great opportunities. I sort of said that, but not all property is going to be great for the next 2 years,
Yeah.
right, or the next 12 months. The type of property that you bought last year is not going to be as successful as the right type of property this year, which is not going to be successful as the same type of property next year, right? Choosing the right type of property and how you actually go and secure that property over the next 12 months, that's going to be a really key determining factor that separates the amateurs from the professionals, if I'm perfectly honest.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Well, we'll find out tomorrow, mate. I'm looking forward to it. See you
Absolutely.
there. Make sure you tune in, send us a like, or give us a like, or whatever it's called, and we'll pop up tomorrow and we'll give you a bit more of our predictions.
Absolutely. See you there.